During marriage counseling, she admitted about her ex. If he asked me back tomorrow, I'd leave you. The therapist froze. I stood up, thanked them for their time, and walked out. Her call started before I reached the parking lot. I never answered. Hey everyone, before we get into today's story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and drop a like if you enjoy content like this. It really helps the channel grow. Thanks. Hey Reddit, I've been lurking here for years, but this is my first time actually posting. I'm using a throwaway because everything that happened is still pretty raw, and I don't want it spilling over into my real life. I'm a 35-year-old guy, and until about a year ago, I genuinely believed my marriage was on solid ground. We'd been married for 5 years, no kids yet, though it was something I kept bringing up. Or at least, I did. Looking back now, that might have been the first warning sign. I was always pushing toward the next chapter, while she seemed perfectly fine staying exactly where we were. But hindsight makes everything clearer, right? Let me rewind a bit so this doesn't feel like it came out of nowhere. For privacy's sake, I'll call myself Alex. I work as an IT manager at a mid-sized tech company in a fairly large East Coast city. It's a stable job with decent money, the kind that lets you buy a house without constantly stressing about finances. I met my wife Jenna back in college. She was majoring in marketing, and I was deep into computer science. She was charismatic, social, the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly draw attention. I was more reserved, the dependable guy who made sure everyone got home safely after parties. Total opposites, but somehow it worked. We dated for 3 years before I proposed. She said yes, and the wedding was everything we'd hoped for. Her family flew in, my family hosted a casual backyard rehearsal dinner, and for a while, life felt right. The first couple of years were good. I stood by her through everything. Around year 2 of our marriage, she lost her job during a round of layoffs. It crushed her emotionally. She sank into a depression that lasted months. I took on extra freelance work to keep us afloat and encouraged her to take time to figure out her next move. I even passed up a promotion that would have required relocating because she wasn't ready to leave. We'll build our life here, I told her. There's no rush. Eventually, she found work as a marketing consultant, and things seemed to improve. But by year 4, cracks started forming. She began staying out late with coworkers, coming home slightly drunk and emotionally distant. Her phone was constantly lighting up, and she'd tilt the screen away whenever I walked by. At first, I told myself it was just work stress. Then came the offhand comments, little comparisons that stuck with me. My coworker Mark just bought a boat, she'd say. Must be nice to live that kind of life. That name, Mark, kept resurfacing. I later learned Mark was an ex from before we met, someone she'd dated briefly in college. She'd mentioned him once or twice over the years, always brushing it off as nothing serious. But suddenly, he was everywhere in conversation. Always slipped in casually, though it never felt casual to me. Then there was social media. She started posting vague stories and tweets about settling for less than you're worth, or reminiscing about sparks that never fully faded. She never tagged me. I saw them anyway. It hurt, but I didn't confront her. I didn't want to look insecure. Instead, I suggested marriage counseling. Let's talk to someone, I said. We've put too much into this to just let it fall apart. She agreed, though her interest felt half-hearted. We scheduled a session with a therapist a friend had recommended. I walked in feeling nervous but hopeful, like this was our chance to reset everything. That morning, I made coffee, kissed her goodbye before work, and we met later at the therapist's office downtown. The place was quiet, neutral, beige walls, generic artwork, designed to feel safe and inoffensive. We sat at opposite ends of a worn-out couch, with the therapist, Dr. Ellis, a middle-aged woman, seated across from us. She started with the usual question, "What brings you here today?" I spoke first. I explained how I felt the distance growing, how I missed feeling connected, how I wanted us to find our way back to each other. Jenna nodded along, but her attention kept drifting to her phone hidden under her leg. When it was her turn, she let out an exaggerated sigh. "I don't know," she said. "Alex looks great on paper, but lately it feels like we're just living together, like roommates. There's no spark anymore." Dr. Ellis leaned forward slightly. "Can you explain what you mean when you say spark?" That was the moment everything began to fall apart. Jenna talked about feeling trapped, about how our life had become too routine, too safe. I listened carefully, nodding along, telling myself this was good. Progress, honesty, finally putting things on the table. Then the therapist asked if there were any past relationships or unresolved emotions that might still be influencing our marriage. Jenna paused for a second, then shrugged. "Well, there's my ex, Mark. We reconnected on social media a while ago. He's just different, more alive." My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. "Reconnected how?" I asked quietly. She waved her hand dismissively. "We're just friends, Alex. But talking to him reminds me of what I might be missing. Dr. Ellis leaned forward. Jenna, can you clarify that? How does this impact your commitment to your marriage? That's when she detonated everything. She looked straight at me, completely unflinching, and said, if Mark asked me to be with him tomorrow, I'd leave you. He's the one that got away. What we have is comfortable, sure, but is that really enough? I deserve more than just stability. The room went completely silent. Dr. Ellis froze mid-note, pen hovering above her pad, her expression stunned like she'd just witnessed a collision. I could hear the clock ticking loudly on the wall. My heart was pounding, but outwardly I stayed calm. No shouting, no tears. It felt like a switch flipped inside me. Everything she'd just said confirmed what I'd been refusing to admit for months. I wasn't her first choice. I was her safety net. I took a slow breath, placed my hands on my knees, and stood up. Thank you for your time, Dr. Ellis, I said evenly. I think I've heard everything I need. Jenna blinked, confused. Wait, what? Alex, sit down. We're not done. I looked at her, not angry, just done. Actually, we are. You've been very clear. Dr. Ellis stumbled over her words. Alex, perhaps we should talk this through. No need, I interrupted calmly. This session has been illuminating. I nodded once to both of them and walked out, down the hallway, into the elevator. My thoughts were racing. I was hurt, sure, but more than that, I felt an odd sense of clarity. All the sacrifices I'd made, the opportunities I'd postponed, the constant support, all of it, for what? To be someone's second option. When I reached the lobby, my phone buzzed. Jenna. I ignored it and stepped into the parking lot. Another buzz, text message. What the hell, Alex? Come back. Then another call, and another. I silenced my phone, got into my car, and drove, not home but to a friend's place across town. I slept on his couch that night and gave him the short version. No dramatics, just, it's over. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer. The calls kept coming, voicemails stacked up. I listened to the first few out of curiosity. Alex, that came out wrong. I was just being honest, like the therapist said. Another one, you're really walking out over words? Don't be immature. We can fix this. Her logic was twisted. She framed betrayal as honesty, as if admitting she'd leave me for another man was some kind of courage. But it was never about the words, it was the truth behind them. I'd been pouring everything into a marriage she saw as temporary. That night, I made decisions. I didn't argue, didn't plead, I detached. I blocked her for space and called a lawyer the next morning to start divorce proceedings. I moved my essentials into storage and left the house untouched. She could stay there, for now. I wanted out clean, but the attempts to reach me didn't stop. Burner numbers, messages saying, "This is ridiculous, talk to me." Then her sister called. "Jenna's a wreck, Alex. She didn't mean it like that. Your family, don't throw everything away," over one session. I hung up without responding. Then her mother emailed. "I raised her, to be honest. You're abandoning her when she needs you most. What kind of man does that?" The hypocrisy burned. They'd always excused her behavior, always cleaned up after her messes. Now they wanted to guilt me into staying. Instead, I focused on myself. I hit the gym harder. I accepted the promotion I'd once turned down and temporarily relocated to a satellite office a few hours away. It felt freeing. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. The next few months weren't dramatic. They were heavy, slow, exhausting. No revenge arcs, no drowning myself in alcohol, just surviving. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. But in that quiet, without Jenna's expectations or subtle jabs, I started breathing again. I officially filed for divorce a week after the counseling session. No fault, clean split. The house was jointly owned, but I let her stay during the process. I didn't want conflict, I just wanted space. My lawyer handled communication while I moved into a small apartment near the new office. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, view of a parking lot, but it was mine. No tension, no waiting for the next blow-up. Work became my anchor. I took on the new role fully, managing a remote team with occasional travel. The responsibility helped. I threw myself into it. I wasn't checking my phone constantly anymore. I also picked up that old freelance cybersecurity work on weekends, slowly building it into a side business. It wasn't flashy, but it gave me purpose and stability. Physically, I changed too. I'd always been reasonably fit, but now the gym became therapy. Early mornings, heavy lifts, long cardio sessions. I dropped 15 pounds and gained muscle, not for revenge, for myself. Mentally, I started therapy on my own, not with Dr. Ellis, someone new. We unpacked a lot, the red flags I ignored, the ways I'd shrunk myself to keep the peace. "You were loyal to a fault," she told me, "but loyalty without reciprocity is just self-sacrifice." Random memories still surfaced. Like the time, 3 years into the marriage, when Jenna's car broke down during a road trip, I drove 4 hours through heavy rain to pick her up without asking a single question. Or the time she wanted to enroll in an expensive marketing program to advance her career. I maxed out a credit card to pay for it, even though it meant postponing my own certifications. Back then, she used to say, "You're my rock." But even rocks wear down eventually. Those memories hurt, but they also became fuel. Why had I accepted being someone's second option? For a while, the uncertainty lingered. Late nights staring at the ceiling, replaying everything, wondering if I could have done something differently. But slowly, that fog lifted. The confusion faded and clarity took its place. This wasn't my failure, it was her decision. Socially, things shifted in unexpected ways. Mutual friends reached out carefully at first, like they were testing the ground. "Heard about the counseling session," one said quietly over coffee. "That's brutal." I never trashed Jenna. I just told the truth. Word traveled, and without any big confrontations, people chose sides. A few friends started pulling away from her and inviting me instead. Barbecues, game nights, casual check-ins. Meanwhile, her social media turned even more vague, cryptic posts about growth through pain, healing journeys, all of it screaming deflection. I muted everything, focused on my circle, started hiking on weekends, joined a local trivia league, met people who didn't know my past, who saw me as Alex, not someone's husband. Dating happened slowly. Nothing serious at first. Coffee here, dinner there, awkward at times but freeing. No pressure to perform. No expectation to be the constant provider. About 6 months after the counseling session, I met Sarah at a work conference. She worked in HR, sharp, grounded, genuinely kind, with a laugh that cut through nonsense. We bonded over sci-fi novels and terrible puns. It didn't feel like a rebound. It felt natural. She knew my story but never poked at it, just supported me. For the first time, I felt like an equal, not a fallback plan. I stayed completely out of Jenna's orbit, ignored the occasional nitpicky email from her lawyer. Her attempts to reach me faded for a will. But the silence felt heavy, like something was building. I did wonder about Mark. Had she gone back to him? Rumors filtered in. Friends mentioned seeing them together, but I didn't ask questions. That was her chaos. Mine was rebuilding, piece by piece. By month 8, I barely recognized the man in the mirror. In a good way, confident, lighter. The pain was still there, like scar tissue, but it no longer controlled me. I'd sat with the injustice long enough. It was time to move forward. That's when karma finally showed up. Not dramatically, just methodically. I didn't go looking for it. It reached me through secondhand, stories from people who couldn't help themselves. Jenna had moved in with Mark about a month after I left. At first it was all intensity and excitement, trips, flashy dates, new chapter energy online. But it unraveled fast. Mark turned out to be exactly what he'd always been, unstable. No real job, sketchy freelance business, arguments escalated. His temper became public. One night at a bar he lost it, yelling, breaking a glass. She brushed it off, but people noticed. By month 5 after our split, he disappeared, used her place to crash, drained what was left of her savings for his so-called ventures, then ghosted. Turns out he'd been seeing someone else the entire time, younger, wilder. Jenna found out through a tagged photo online. She spiraled, lost her job after bringing personal drama into work, missed deadlines, showed up distracted. HR cut her loose with a severance that barely covered rent. Then came isolation. Even her family, chronic enablers, hit their limit. A mutual friend told me her sister said, "Jenna's a mess," crying nonstop, blaming everyone. Friends distanced themselves after hearing the counseling story straight from me, no embellishments. Invitations stopped. Group chats went quiet. Her reputation tanked. She ended up unsing between her mom's couch and unemployment checks, buried in debt she couldn't manage alone. I heard all of this in fragments. A text here, a comment there. I never asked, just acknowledged and moved on. Internally, it wasn't joy. It was validation. She chased excitement and found instability. I chose peace and built something solid. No explosions, just consequences. Once reality hit her, Jenna's attempts to come back intensified. It started with texts from unfamiliar numbers. "Alex, please talk to me. I made a mistake." I deleted them. Then voicemails, crying, then angry. Her family piled on, framing me as heartless for refusing to forgive her honesty. About a month after she lost her job, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I'd just gotten home when the intercom buzzed. Her voice cracked. "Alex, it's me. Please." I buzzed her in but kept the chain on the door. She looked wrecked. Messy hair, swollen eyes, wrinkled clothes. She stepped closer. "Mark was horrible," she said. "Abusive. Manipulative. He took everything. I'm staying with my mom now. It's hell. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. What do you want, Jenna? I want us back, she said. That counseling session, it wasn't real. I was pressured. You're the good one. We can fix this. I shook my head. You said you'd leave if he asked, and you did. She twisted it instantly. That was hypothetical. You pushed me away with your boring life. This isn't about excitement, I said calmly. It's about respect. And you didn't have any, she snapped. So you're done? After everything? I closed the door mid-rant. The calls continued. Her sister, her mother, guilt trips, accusations. I didn't engage. The final confrontation came 9 months later at a mutual friend's wedding. Small outdoor venue. I attended with Sarah. We were solid by then. Jenna showed up unexpectedly, looking out of place. She cornered me at the buffet. I've changed, she whispered. I see what I lost. I gestured towards Sarah, laughing nearby. That's my future. Is she a rebound? Jenna asked. No, I said evenly. She's my partner. She lashed out. You'll regret this. I shrugged. Doubt it. I walked away. That night, I blocked her permanently. The divorce finalized soon after. She sold the house in a rush. I got promoted again. Traveled with Sarah. Built a life. The betrayal hurt once. Now it's just a story. If you're stuck being someone's backup, walk away with dignity. The rest works itself out. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit like, and let me know what you think in the comments.